Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World, episode 115. I'm John Jordan, and joining me today, I am very happy to say, for the third time, but a big gap in the middle, we'll talk about that, is Jeff from Sky Mavis, Axie Infinity, growth lead, co-founder, all that good stuff. How's it going, Jeff?
Yeah, going well. It's been a while. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
I was looking it up. So you appeared on show 83 back in 9th of December 2020, and basically nothing has happened for Axie Infinity since that period of time. So we've not missed anything at all. Kind of where to start, really. I don't know. Normally in the show, people could give their potted history, but in your case, there's no point doing that because you've been on the show twice, and if people don't know who you are, then they probably shouldn't be listening to the podcast, really. So we'll try and use our time a bit more wisely. I guess the most recent thing that's happened, and there's a whole bunch of news focused around that, so that's a good place to start, is AxieCon. So that's your first sort of conference that you've done last week in Barcelona, and it looked fantastic. Looked like everyone had a great time there. Have you are you exhausted from it? Have you come down from the high?
Yeah, it was really intense. It was our first time doing really an event at that scale, so it was actually difficult to actually know what to expect. But yeah, the energy was incredible. The community really showed up. People traveled from all over the world. We made a bunch of exciting announcements. The esports was electric. So yeah, I'm just still buzzing from the afterglow.
And I noticed everyone was wearing shorts. So that was
It was,
hilarious.
it
I
was
was following
quite
on Twitter, and everyone was like, "Yeah."
quite toasty in Barcelona.
Was
So
it?
I think I wore long pants for some of my talks. But
It's good.
it was yeah.
Informality is great. So let's maybe pick apart some of that news. I mean, there's a lot there. I guess the big thing sort of leading up to it has been what we now call Axie Infinity Origins, plural. So that's the new version of the game, and that's sort of the focus sort of now. Until it's sort of live now, but sort of become more live. So you've announced season 1 of that as well. So really, that product, although it has sort of ways to go, we'll talk a bit about that in terms of distribution. But that's really sort of hit the ground running now. And this is the sort of I don't know what you call it. You call it phase 3 now, I think, don't you? Phase 3 of Axie Infinity is definitely happening. And 1 million downloads already. Is that the number
Yeah.
I got right? Yeah.
So we announced some Origins data at AxieCon. We officially hit 1 million downloads in early access without being on app stores. So we were really proud of that. And we announced that there were 155 million SLP burnt in season 0 versus around just 50 million SLP actually earned, right? So we're seeing that there's actually more consumption than earning in the game, which is, a sign that we're on the right path when it comes to the sustainability bit. And yeah, we also teased the roadmap. We showed off upgraded Axie parts, which have been a long time coming, super eagerly anticipated cosmetics, right? We know that digital fashion and just cosmetic accessories, things like that, are a huge driver of monetization in Web 2, and we want to lead the way when it comes to Web 3 gaming use of cosmetics and kind of differentiated aesthetics to help drive spending, demand, consumption, what have you, in these types of economies.
Mm-hmm. And just to quickly go through some other stuff, I mean, I don't know if I have time to cover it all, but obviously the land part is now, getting close. I think to the end of the year is kind of the first sort of playable bits of that. Obviously, that's a long-term sort of meta, how Axie and land sort of come together. But we've seen some stuff around that as well. The esports tournament, so you had your first championship esports tournament completed at AxieCon. So I think a guy from Argentina, I think he was a guild member in Argentina. Crowned the first champion.
Yeah, so we had first on the land bit, we actually had a playable demo at AxieCon.
Okay.
And which I think people really enjoyed. And yeah, we confirmed that we will have an alpha by the end of the year, maybe around the holiday season. We also announced a land mini game built by QuickSave, a Finnish game studio. So it's kind of like the first of these first-party games built by a game developer that we kind of actively work with. So it shows that, right, like there will be games built by Sky Mavis. there will be games built by game studios working in conjunction with Sky Mavis. And then, of course, as we know through the Builders program, there will also be games built by community members. Yeah, on the esports front, yeah, so we actually had it was quite complicated, right? Because we were doing the last dance, the final run for Classic, and then we retired it, and then we were also doing the first really global Origins tournament, right? So we had Sebastian from Meditate take the crown for Classic in dramatic fashion in Game 7. He crit with heal, which was insane, and ended up surviving with 12 HP. That was like the perfect send-off for Classic. And then we had 1437 from Meditate as well defeat Spam and Rice in the finals, which was the best narrative, I think, and the best storyline for that, because at AxieCon we were actually finishing the season for Season 0, and the season was ending at 6 a.m., and Spam and Rice and 1437 met in the arena at 5 a.m. Spam and Rice had been at the top of the leaderboard for, I believe, 15 days leading up to that, and 1437 took him down in the final hour. And so 1437 actually won the first season of Origins, Season 0, and he also took home the first Origins World Championship. So that was insane. We had people from Team Secret, Method, Complexity, all in attendance, and I think they were really excited about the future for Axie Esports.
Mm-hmm. And it is, and I guess it is interesting. Taking a bit of a tangent here, the whole esports and blockchain. There's been lots of different things going on there, and lots of different attempts. Nothing's really stuck now, and obviously people are trying to sort of retrospectively fit existing games into maybe a blockchain sort of payment system, or that sort of stuff. And the current esports teams are trying to work out how should they be issuing NFTs, or how should they be doing it. Obviously, this sort of ground up thing from scratch blockchain games for esports, and it's sort of, in some ways, it sort of shows the fact that Axie, I mean, partly it's off the back of your success, and you effectively can bankroll all this sort of stuff because you've been very successful. But actually, it sort of always shows. I think when people think about esports, they think that the games have to be in a way complicated for esports. But actually, it's just, as you sort of just described it there, it's just as long as you have these sort of tension moments and these sort of reversals, and the characters are there. Actually, the game needs to be something clearly, but it's the people that make it sort of work, and it's the teams, and you can just sort of see how actually something like Axie, and clearly Axie will be for the next year or so, probably the biggest blockchain esports title, because you can fund it.
It felt so tangible, where right, we saw them battling it out in front of us. We had talked to I had talked to the champs leading up, so I felt even more emotionally invested because I actually knew them as people. And so it is I think the community aspect, the characters behind the scene, right? This fandom, this shared fandom, and these narratives, these stories, it really makes it. And of course, we're also we have certain product philosophies, right, when it comes to how do we make a game that can be competitive and engaging for this type of event. So of course, huge shout out to the Origins team, because not it wouldn't work if the game wasn't fun and had a high skill cap, right? And we're starting to see, right, it's not random, right? Like it's impossible. It's basically impossible for it to be random if the same person won the season, where there were hundreds of thousands of people participating, and then as well as the bring your own device tournament, where we had hundreds of people who it was open qualifiers for anyone who was at AxieCon, ended up still having the two people who were at the top of the leaderboard in both. So.
And again, without continuing my tangent too much, I'm really interested in the esports blockchain bit, clearly. But I guess what's interesting, again, generally in esports, you've had these sort of ideas of whether it's top down from sort of the the game developer, or whether it's sort of bottom up from the sort of esports sort of tournament people. And I guess Activision Blizzard tried to do this whole kind of vertical slice, and don't think it worked, and it was very expensive. So what's interesting with Axie as it is at the moment is, sort of you guys have control over, so it's sort of to a degree sort of top down because you're sort of funding it, but then you have this whole grant structure that's bottom up as well. So you can sort of see, again, when I look about blockchain, it's sort of about building those sort of holistic kind of incentive situations where everyone can sort of get involved. And you Sky Mavis is clearly involved; it's your game, but also empowering a whole bunch of other people around the world to build these things. And actually, it's the right approach is top down and bottom up at the same time. You sort of meet.
We're doing it together, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of, it's like, right, our tagline almost. It's
Yeah.
kind of become a tagline for Axie, right? Is like, let's build together, right? So it's like, yes, Sky Mavis is heavily involved. If we weren't heavily involved, it would almost be like abandoning the project, and you know, that we're really against that. And but yeah, we can't do it without the community, right? So it's like, you know, we have to do it together. There are certain things that we need to come in and provide the structure for, especially in the early days. But there are certain things, right? And then we can't do it without the kind of the grassroots energy and you know, hard work of community members all over the world. So.
Yeah. And again, sort of segueing here is also what's interesting. I think sort of the strength of blockchain games in general for esports and Axie in particular is you now have season 1 going for Axie Infinity Origins, where basically anyone can play. Obviously, you know, anyone who wants to play the game has got the NFTs, can play it, and you sort of have now $1.5 million worth of AXS tokens on a leaderboard. The top 40,000 people in the world sort of earn that. But that is sort of, you know, it's not an esports as in a sort of knockout tournament, but that's sort of, you know, sort of in terms of the reward system of esports, which is sort of about the best players get the rewards. That is a version of esports. Just maybe sort of,
I think so. I mean,
and then that sort of underpins the whole thing then, because people are used to playing competitively for rewards, and then the esport thing, you know, the competition proper ones come in, and that's just, well, we've been doing that 24/7 anyway.
I think like traditionally esports is, right, like paid out, you know, money to the very, very top of the competition, right? There are players who in our ecosystem who come from Magic the Gathering, Hearthstone, etc. They were top players, you know, never made more than you know, a few dollars. Whereas, you know, I think with our ecosystem, of course, right, like through the tokenized incentives, right, we have all these funding structures, and we're able to pay everything out through smart contracts, right? So the operational overhead is quite low of being able to, right, distribute prizes to tens of thousands of people at once, right? So we actually increased the leaderboard slots from 10,000 to 20,000 to 40,000 in season 1, and we intend to, you know, just increase that threshold over time. I believe in season 20 of Classic, we actually paid out the top 400,000. So I think, right, like we can talk about, you know, play and own, play and earn, whatever. But I mean, to me, it's like, you know, in one way to look at it is just democratizing esports, right? Like,
Yep.
Yep.
No, exactly. And I guess. Well, all being about money. For season 1, the top player on the leaderboard at the end of October, is it mid-October? I think, is it? Is going to win the current price $90,000 of AXX token, which is, you know, I mean, that also plays into the global sort of thing where you don't have to, you know, be in a official esports team and be doing all this training in, you know, South Korea or wherever it is, China. Anyone with a, you know, with a computer, with a mobile phone, probably, you know, obviously it's only going to be one person in the world, but that's $90,000 is anywhere in the world a lot of money. It's sort of, you know, you can just see how sort of blockchain is changing that. You probably, you know, you couldn't do that just with fiat currency in the same way.
For sure. So season 1 will go for 62 days. It started yesterday, so it's still quite early. We're actually going to do a balancing patch in about 13 days. So I think a lot of the pro players are kind of waiting for that direction to see what changes emerge, and kind of we'll be studying the meta. So yeah, it's exciting. We had this great trailer as well, so check out the Axie Infinity Origins trailer. I think they got a really great response at AxieCon. Yeah, we actually changed the name from Origin. We changed the name from Origin to Origins to kind of reflect, you know, that we're you know, season 1 is here, and things are starting to really get scaled up, and the game is starting to get ready to that point where we feel like we're building towards a product that people can introduce to their friends and family that aren't Web3 native.
Well, that's a good segue actually. So I get my family playing blockchain games, especially my children. They can grind out some stuff for me. So they've all had to go at Axie, but now actually my wife is we've just downloaded Sky Mavis Hub and we're getting going. So it's going pretty wide. We'll see how she does. See if she can make the top 40,000. Going back to the video trailer, there was a little teaser at the end there. I haven't seen too much comment on that. How's that gone down with the community? The new character, or they're not the new characters, the sort of dark. I don't know how to describe them. Well, I don't know. That was. I mean, that was obviously that was the whole point of the, not the whole point of the video, but that was sort of the.
Well, yeah. So one of the things is that we have Chimera and we have
Mm,
kind of these antagonists in the Axie universe. We don't know too much about them. We don't know what their
yeah.
motivations are.
Mm,
But I think like a good trailer often has this idea of like power scaling and
yeah.
mystery, right? Like, oh,
Okay.
something comes in, right? That's super
Yeah.
strong at the end,
Yeah.
so yeah, we have the PvE mode. We only have one of the levels,
Mm,
I guess one of the worlds, I guess,
mm,
and then there will be more, right? So we also want to build out the PvE, the adventure mode component
okay.
of the universe, mix in some lore with that, and we have some plans to make it a little bit like a roguelike thing, where we
Okay.
have this PvP battle system, right? And that's very competitive, but actually there's a lot to be said for player versus monster
Mm,
competitive types of situations, right? Where you might have like a roguelike mode where things are changing constantly and there's a leaderboard of, right, who can go the farthest in a week, a
yeah.
month, a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is like very Slay the Spire-esque. And, that's something that it's kind of, it's in the idea stage.
Mm,
Um, but it's something that we've discussed internally and have also like kind of
mm,
talked to the community about. And I think there are a lot of players that like that type of
yeah.
experience more so than the very competitive and hostile playing
Yeah.
another actual person. So
No, I think it definitely broadens the audience. Isn't it? I mean, there's some people thrive on competition that really, obviously, at the high
mm.
level, the retention and really the focus on skill, but other people get turned off by competition, so you want to sort of spread it out. So, obviously, there's not been any official announcements yet, but the whole point of Origins was it is a sort of redesigned product, redesigned with a sort of free to play element, and it is redesigned to be designed to go through app stores. So, I don't know how much you can say about that. What can you say about it? I guess.
Well, yeah. So the idea, right,
what
is
are we,
like, I
what are we
mean,
waiting for?
yeah, yeah. So basically, right. So Origins introduced runes and charms, right? So this idea of like ERC 1155 craftable tokens that you can use to pr- upgrade your axes, or this idea of like vertical progression of axes, which is something that we've been talking about for a while, and we've kind of finally introduced that with runes and charms. That adds like this whole new element where for example, during the esports tournament, right, like people, they weren't just switching their teams, they're also switching the runes and charms on their axes, and creates like almost like much more infinite kind of deck building.
Mm,
Uh, I guess a variety when it comes to the gameplay. Of course, also that's what you use. You craft runes and charms using SLP
mm,
and moon shards, right, which is also helping to balance the economy. We've also introduced 3 free starter axes, so people can fall in love with the game, start playing. They don't need to go through any of the complicated wallet download, and just fall in love with the art, the universe, before having to make any kind of economic decisions or any Web3
mm,
onboarding maneuvers. We've yeah the turn system is more intuitive now, right? So when you play a card, the Axie instantly springs into action, which
mm,
is to us, and I think the community, right? It makes it more faster paced and more intuitive for people who might not be as familiar with card games. The
mm.
old turn structure was a little bit counterintuitive, where both players picked and then had to
Yeah.
anticipate what the other person might play. And it created some fun mind games, but we thought that
Mm.
it was a little bit complex, right? If you stack complex gameplay on top of a very complex like turn structure on top of the Web3 stuff, you get like complexity squared. So yeah, I think those are the major changes. Of course, like the art, the animations got a major overhaul. The axes look more beautiful. So yeah, we're really excited about it. I think the community is super energized. It took some wrangling, right, to get people like,
Mm.
hey, like we're gonna depreciate classic, and people were like, we love classic, right? We're like, no, we're gonna give it a final last dance at AxieCon.
Yeah.
And it was a process to kind of wrangle everybody over. Of course, like switching the SLP rewards over from classic to Origins helped a lot as well.
But that is sort of one of the advantages, isn't it, of blockchain? Is if that was um, a Web 2 game, you just basically say we're sort of throwing that away, and that's because there's nothing outside of the game. You're basically throwing everything away. I suppose you could have it on the servers, but with the blockchain stuff, because at least there's concept of ownership by the players of these NFTs, and so the game bit, to a degree, not it doesn't matter, but it matters less because you've got the assets, you've got the tokens and stuff. Um, you know, presumably that eased the sort of the transition. And obviously, some of the
Yeah, well, I mean, we have these new incentive layers, right, and reward mechanisms to help wrangle the player base over from one
yeah
thing to another, right? So
yeah. So in terms of the say the APK's live, the PC version, I think Mac version as well, currently live. In terms of getting it on app stores, is that just now? I mean, are you sort of ready to go? Just go through approvals, or is there still? You say you got one sort of balance patch to go, I guess. So you're probably waiting for that.
yeah, well, stay tuned for that. We have been in discussions with the app stores, and they're really eager to learn, and we want to help
Yeah,
educate. And we feel that as the leaders in the Web3's gaming space, if we don't push this through and we don't,
yeah,
help with this process, then nobody's going to do it, right? So
yeah.
we're educating. We want to work really closely with the app stores, and yeah, hopefully have some good news on that front to share with everybody soon.
Cool, good. Um, as we've sort of gone through some of the sort of stuff you guys have been doing, you're still a fairly small company, aren't you? I think you're about like 100, 120, something like that.
175 now, so
Okay, so okay, it's not so tiny, but still, I mean, for you, it must be getting to the stage now where it's getting hard to keep track of all the stuff because you have all the stuff you're doing internally on various projects, and then you have all this sort of external stuff, and there's more to come in terms of some of the approach you're having. I guess rolling out sort of Ronin as an ecosystem as well, external to Axie Infinity. Is that sort of exciting that there's so much going on, or is that sort of slightly terrifying that you're supposed to know what's happening? People will assume you know what's happening.
yeah, I mean, I think we're at that stage, right, that a lot of kind of startups go through, where you kind of go from being startup to kind of growth stage, and you start to have more teams, and you need to implement more processes, but you also need to make sure that you're not losing your soul and that you maintain the
Yeah,
culture. And yeah, it's I think we're really well adapted for the challenge. Of course, many of our employees are also coming from the community, which I think also helps, like, right, because that helps to preserve the culture and the mission even as we scale and become a much larger organization. But yeah, we also have like amazing hires that are coming from Web 2 that have all these amazing skills that we haven't been able to really access up until this point, and they're coming in and really shaking things up, and adding these adding diversity to our organizational skill set. So yeah, it is chaotic, but I think every stage has been chaotic in its own way.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I think we're going through it pretty smoothly.
And how are you finding it? Because I guess back in the day there was not, I don't know, 10 of you or something, and you all have to do everything. And I guess that's you sort of wish, I wish there was someone else to do this boring task I'm having to do. And now there is probably lots of people to do it. But equally, that's part of the. I mean, how do you feel your role is changing? Obviously, becoming, I guess, more of a sort of a figurehead thing than someone who is actively sort of, I don't know, thinking about marketing strategy or something. Or maybe you do, I don't know. But often when people go for that sort of startup thing, that's a difficult, because lots of people like to have their fingers in the pies, even at a level when sometimes there are better people in the company to put fingers in pies, and then the people who still want to put their fingers in pies are sort of left with their fingers floating in the air. It's a bad analogy. But,
Yeah, it's definitely a transition, right? There are certain things that I really enjoy doing that I can't do anymore, and that's
yeah.
always, I think, like a transition for a founder. But I also, I really like being public facing as well. So I think, like, doing more of that, or focusing more, being able to focus more on that is also fine for me. So. And then I think it's
And I
also
guess,
about, like, getting down like certain principles, right? Like, okay, this is how we've done things in the past, right? So there is a lot of work around, right, like creating these kind of foundational documents that can allow people to do a lot of the things that have gotten us to this point in a systematic way. So.
and I guess, you're not the only face of the company. There's sort of a few, but clearly you're one of them. And given the trajectory Axie has sort of gone through, which is, a typical sort of feast famine sort of thing. How have you found dealing with that? Have you? I assume you've had to sort of really develop a pretty thick skin, and how has that sort of changed how you be like a public sort of representation of something that's like amazing and the best thing ever in the world, and then suddenly this is terrible. You're just destroying the world. You're these sort of evil sort of sweatshop. Sort of
Yeah, it's
people.
funny. I mean, my of course, like having a support system, like my wife, my family, my friends from that are outside of Web3 really helps give perspective. My real life friends think it's kind of quite funny, actually, right? Like the memes that get made about me or us, and
Yeah.
the hate that we get sometimes from the media. So that helps me put it in perspective. I think I'm also like, I'm quite competitive, right? So, we're just, fully focused on being the leader in the market, and we're able, I think, to like block out a lot of the noise. And of course, like, it also, people are always like, oh, like people are so mean to you online, like, how do you feel? It's like, well, I've never actually met anyone who was mean to me from the
Okay.
community. Like when I meet
Mm.
the community in real life at physical events, it's always nothing but love and
Mm.
excitement and enthusiasm. So that also helps me, and I think helps everybody at Sky Mavis push through some of the adversity and I don't know, negative
Yeah.
haters basically.
Did you feel sort of any of the criticism was sort of sort of helpful in a way, or at that stage when you're getting so much of that, you just basically not not look at Twitter or something, or
Well, what I'll say is I think that bear markets, a good organization in this space needs to understand how to lean
mm,
into both bull and bear markets, and
yeah,
how to sail the ship during different periods. And I
mm,
think one of the things that happened, during the bull market was a lot of people felt like they were joining, and it was like, wow, this is awesome. But it's like,
mm,
like this is, everything is going so well. Like, how can I really earn my stripes, right? How can I be responsible for this when maybe I'm just coming on to a rocket
yeah,
ship, right? And now I
mm,
feel like a lot, because of the adversity, because of the market conditions, the newcomers to the team feel like, hey, this is my opportunity to become a hero, right? To become part of the
mm,
mythology of this project, both within the community and both within Sky Mavis, right? It's like this is an opportunity where, right, everyone talks about the people who are here in 2018, 2019 as the true missionaries. That's great that we highlight them, but it can be sad if you're a newcomer, right? You're like, when's you're just like I used when I was a kid. I used to grew up thinking like, oh, I wish that I had been born during the time of the American Revolution, right? Like all the great battles and all the great movements have already been fought. What am I going to do with my life, right? That was how I felt until I discovered NFTs. So I think there's that right call to action now, that it's an opportunity to really step up.
mm. And sort of more thinking more widely. Again, back to the sort of feast and famine, when Axie was sort of taking off and you had whatever 2.7 million DAUs, and I guess well, certainly from my sort of second-hand experience of it, all the traditional games companies were just like, what's this thing going on? It's gonna we need to check it out. We need to be doing blockchain games, and then sort of afterwards they're just like, no, we're not doing blockchain games. Sort of
Yeah, it's
NFT is
just
one of
it's a
those
defense
sort of thing.
mechanism, really, right? So.
But sort of looking at it, as you say, from you guys clearly are the market leader in terms of size of sort of product and value and stuff. What do you think is the biggest mistake that the sort of traditional game makers are getting about blockchain? Is it that they, rightly in a sense, they just get sort of too easily constrained by sort of price and price? If price is up, they're really excited about it. If price is down, they're just not touching it. I mean, what do they fundamentally
They're being
not
schizophrenic,
understand?
right? Like I think it will take a founder led large gaming organization that's still founder led and thinking in
Mm,
terms of like 30 years, rather than thinking in terms of the quarterly results. That will be like I think one of the characteristics of any large major gaming organization that comes in. In terms of the mistakes, yeah, I think I think they're just not they're not thinking, they're thinking short term, right? And they are not necessarily interested in learning, and just taking things slow, and maybe they are, maybe that's but I think like having that type of, yeah, they're a little bit schizophrenic where they're interested and then they're hot and cold, right? Whereas
mm,
I think like you need to be doing serious research and relationship development, maybe speaking to users, doing user
mm,
interviews, and really starting to understand the benefits of this technology, its limitations, but also the benefits,
mm,
aside from the hype and the headlines.
mm. Because it sort of seems to me that they obviously they get the technology, they understand NFTs, but they sort of still don't. They don't understand the collaborative bit of it, and the fact that the NFT isn't. The art of the NFT clearly doesn't matter, and the fact you have an NFT and the price of NFT doesn't matter. It's the fact that you're building community around a digital asset, whatever that NFT is, and that also is something that has to be fundamentally reflected in the game they're making. And I think that's a complicated sort of concept, because previously all game makers have just sat down with the game design team and basically come up with a game and made it and hope people like it and done a bit of research around that.
Another thing that happens Another thing that happens a lot is there actually are people who are at these large organizations that are interested in Web3, but they encounter so much web tape, and there's so much like consensus-based hierarchical decision making that they're like, okay, like they try to do some experiments around it, and then they're like, okay, throw their hands up in the air, and because they're talking to us and talking to whoever, they end up getting opportunities to leave, right? So there's like a brain drain, of the interested people from the large major gaming organizations into organizations like Sky Mavis, which it's good for us, but it sets those organizations back in terms of their ability to digest and understand the technology.
Yeah, because the most forward-thinking people in those organizations have left, so they're sort of hollowed out. Anyone who would be enthusiastic for it has sort of gone to do it rather than hang around.
So sometimes I'm like, guys, stop leaving. Like, you guys need to stay at these places and advocate for us. Stop coming, stop coming into the space. It's kind of a jest, because I think it's preferable. It's great to have talent inflows. So.
Yeah. Okay, so the unanswerable question that everyone sort of hates being asked. For the next 6 months, how do you think Axie progresses? How do you think the blockchain game sector sort of progresses? For my sort of view, obviously it's impossible to say, but what happens is nothing happens for a long time, and then suddenly something like Axie sort of blows up, and we all have to evaluate our sort of timeframes and our sort of ambitions.
Yeah, well, you do have these you do have these 0 to 1 moments, right? Yeah. Where a new fundamental innovation happens, and that kind of becomes part of the template. And so with Axie, of course, it was like first, NFTs that can move, and then NFTs that you can battle, right? And then ERC20 tokens that can function as in-game resources that are awarded through the game. Then, right, the Axis token, a game that could be owned by the users, right? A game that could be built by both developer and community. And then, right, is like, what is next, right? I think like part of it will be, the cosmetics and skins, right? Like that is a huge industry that I think is ripe for disruption, because people are spending billions of dollars on cosmetic digital fashion for their game assets that they don't own. So I think that's ripe for disruption, and that's reflected in the Origins roadmap. I think the large major esports organizations starting to sign Web3 players, maybe from the Axie community, or maybe even sending some talent in. I think that will be a big trend. We're seeing these consumable NFTs, right? Like the runes and charms that expire after a season, right? So it's like you have a sink, but this is a net deflationary sink, because you're burning resources for something that yields less, theoretically it yields less resources, and is not permanent. I think those are some of the trends that we'll see. Of course, I think we'll also see this idea of NFT gaming assets as the base layer for Web3 IP, right? We're starting to see this with Axie, where if you own an Axie, if you own a team of Axies, you now are getting kind of this access to an infinite content library, right? Some of these games will be built by Sky Mavis, some will be built by game studios working maybe in conjunction with us, and some of these games will be built by the community. So I think these trends are starting to marinate and simmer and mature, and they just need to be in the oven until they're nice and brown and crispy.
And sort of final question: it may sound like a weird thing to say, but given the trajectory of Sky Mavis and Axie Infinity, but I still sort of wonder if Axie Infinity as a product is still really actually quite underestimated in sort of what you're doing, particularly now you have all these other things going on. And so I think people get very focused on there's a game I played, it wasn't very good in my opinion, sort of thing. Which was sort of last year, the new games come out and they just sort of I think it's very easy to, not just in blockchain but in everything, to sort of dismiss something on the sort of on the shallow impressions you have. But it seems to me, I mean, maybe I would say this having known you guys for a long time, but there's an awful lot of stuff going on there, and it really is, partly because you started before anyone else. This is sort of the best example you would bring to of someone building out a fully blockchain game with this sort of land meta. You've got your own blockchain it's running on, the whole ecosystem around that. Tokens, NFTs, blah blah blah. It is incredibly impressive, I think.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So do I think that we're underestimated still? Like, yes, definitely. And it's awesome. Like, that's part of our advantage, is that we can always harness that underestimation of us for whatever reason. Maybe because, Axie looks, maybe like a casual game, or cute, or, that we have, that we're very multicultural. That we're mobile first, that many of us weren't game developers. The founders, none of us were game developers until Axie, perhaps, right? There are a myriad of reasons that we're underestimated, and we always embrace that and use it as fuel to really push forward and prove everybody wrong. So yeah, we've done it many times before. Look forward to doing it again.
Cool, good, excellent, Jeff. Thank you very much for your time. It's great to have you on the podcast again.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me, John. Let's do this again soon.
Cool. And thanks to you for watching, listening, have you consuming the podcast. Please subscribe through your podcast platform of choice. Every episode we're talking to people who are building out this, I think absolutely fascinating new way of playing games and owning things and building community. And I think it's I think it's totally revolutionary, to be honest. So I hope you do too, and I hope you enjoy the content. See you next time.